For President Donald Trump, Stephen Moore. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me. This is a great conference, and it's great to meet so many fellow freedom lovers like yourself.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us here at America's Voice News.
Happy.
So first question I have for you is that there's a tremendous amount of economic news right now. Everybody's talking about the economy doing so well. What is not being reported in the mainstream media as far as what is happening in the economy that you wish was taking more of a, I guess, getting more public attention?
Well, I'm a little biased, but I think Donald Trump, what's not being reported is how much of the credit Donald Trump deserves for this booming economy. And this is the best economy we've had in 30 years. It is, we've got the lowest interest rates, the lowest inflation, lowest unemployment rate. We've got wages rising. We've got growth there was 1.5% when we took over from Obama to now up to 3%.
Right.
The 7.5 million unfilled jobs, which is a great problem for a country to hold. And the media is acting like this just happened by accident. I've even heard people, in the media say, oh, this is just a continuation of what happened under Obama. That's ridiculous. Everything we've done has been to actually repeal and reverse what Obama did. And, this shows what happens, in my opinion, when you put a pro-business, pro-America president in office, someone who knows something about business, and that I think has made all the difference.
Right. Now, a lot of people, especially libertarians, right-of-center conservatives, are deeply concerned about the trade wars that are seeing right now in China. In fact, you said the U.S.-China trade war will be an epic battle that lasts 10 to 15 years.
Yep.
So we're looking well beyond this president. What did that mean? What did that refer to specifically?
Well, first of all, I do think I'm very bullish on the U.S. right now. We're, for all the reasons that I mentioned. But there is a dark cloud on the economy right now, and that is the trade war with China. Now, I happen to think for the most part, Trump is doing the right thing. I think this is an epic battle, and I think it will last, a generation. This isn't going to be solved in 1 year. Thank God, in my opinion, that Donald Trump is finally confronting Beijing for a lot of its abusive behavior, whether it's stealing our technology, it's intellectual property theft, it's hacking into our computer systems, cyber espionage, the fact that they have not opened up their markets to us there's a lot of problems with China. And so if Trump can get a trade deal, sometime in the next, 6 months or so, and I think there's a high likelihood that happens, I think the economy really shifts into an even faster gear. But this isn't going to be solved. A lot of people think, we'll have one trade deal and it'll be over. No, this is the new Cold War. It's going to be step by step by step to try to get China. And look, we want both countries to be prosperous. China thinks we're trying to hold them back. No, we just want to make sure they're playing by the rules and they're not cheating.
Right. So what we're taking a look at right now, Beijing says that they're coming to the table on a few certain things. Their economy is very soft right now,
it is.
Right?
Yep.
They're in a lot of trouble.
For them it's soft. They're still growing, but their rate of growth is they've been hurt by these terrorists. Look, Trump believes, and he's mostly right, that if we can't trade with them, we sneeze. If they can't trade with us, they catch pneumonia. So he feels like we have leverage over them, and we do. Yeah. I don't know how much they're growing pretty fast, so at some point we might not have the leverage that we have today. And that's why this is the right time, I think, to fight this battle.
Right. But when we take a look at China and we take a look at the tariffs, we also take a look at the USMCA. And we have a lot of individuals in this country that believe that they are being detrimentally impacted, farmers, manufacturers, by all of this as well. People say that it's hurting the economy, it's not helping right now. Now, is that a temporary measure?
You mean when people say this is hurting, you mean NAFTA? Or?
I'm talking about, the trade with Mexico and China. It's actually causing tariffs to go up. It's causing taxes to go up.
Yeah. Well, tariffs or taxes, they do hurt the economy. I view this, there's two separate issues here. I don't want to conflate China with Mexico.
Right.
Okay. China is a bad actor. They're bad people over there. They are engaged in some really bad behavior that we can't. They're an adversary of the United States right now. Yeah. Mexico is not an adversary of the United States. Now, I feel very strongly that Congress and Nancy Pelosi should bring that to a vote right now. And it'll pass. We should have a free trade agreement with Mexico and Canada. We want the whole North American continent to be unified so that we can take on Europe and Asia. And so I'm very hopeful. And by the way, once we can get U.S. MCA ratified, it strengthens our hands in negotiating against China. We want to isolate China as the bad actor.
So you can leverage that.
Yeah,
and they can see that.
Now, that's the way I see it.
Let me
Do you
ask you.
disagree with that? I mean,
well, listen. I think that I take a look at this, and I'm not a believer in tariffs. I think they're just attacks, like you just referred to as well. But from my personal standpoint, as a lay economist, I believe that what Trump is doing is long game.
Exactly.
Okay, I believe that politically, it's probably not good for him right now to do this, but he is taking a look at this.
Well, except the American people. Look, I worked on the campaign. Yeah. From the moment he walked down that escalator and announced he was running for president, up in Trump Tower, it was about China. And, I think it was the fact that he was going to get tough with China was one major reason I think the American people are behind him. And they recognize, even the farmers recognize, look, this is going to cause some short-term pain, but in the long term, we can't go on with a relationship where they are cheating and stealing.
Yeah. Last question on that one issue. Does that politically impact him? Negatively, positively, what?
Well, I think he's certainly very positively impacted by getting a deal done. Because I think the economy would be stronger. He needs a strong economy to win in 2020, and I think if he gets a deal done, he's home free.
Last question for you. Okay, we're conservatives. $22.5 trillion national debt. Nobody is happy about this. And the expenses are still continuing to rise. The budgets that are coming out are insane. What can be done here?
First of all, to keep growing the economy. Because at least what Trump has done is stabilize the debt in terms of, its share of our GDP. That's not good enough, but it's a start. Because it went straight up under the last 2 years under Bush and the 8 years under Obama.
Right.
So it's gone
doubled under Obama.
And now it's kind of leveled off. But
how's it leveled off? It's gone from 18.
No. I mean the way you look at the debt is how much is our debt relative to our assets, our economy.
Yeah.
And that's leveled off.
Okay.
So I mean, if I have $500 worth of debt, and you have $500 worth of debt, but I only have $10,000 income, and you have $100,000 of income, your debt is a lot smaller than mine. But look, you make a great point. Neither Republicans nor Democrats want to do anything about controlling spending. And anybody thinks rah-rah Republicans, they are fiscally conservative. They're not fiscally conservative. They're not any more fiscally conservative than the Democrats. But what scares me is, you mentioned our $22 trillion debt. I've done analysis of how big the Democratic agenda would be in terms of costs. Reparations, Green New Deal, Medicare for all, Social Security expansions, all of these other things, guaranteed national income. And it's $100 trillion.
Yeah.
$100 trillion over 20 years.
Right.
That would bankrupt our country.
I get the argument, and I use the same argument, but a little bit of cancer is still cancer.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean,
what the Republicans are doing is still
Look, I'm not
bad.
defending the Republicans.
Right.
I like what Trump talked about in the campaign, the penny plan. Just cut a penny from every program for 5 years. Each year, one penny. So if you're spending $1, next year you spend 99 cents, then 98 cents. Every family, household, business does that. Why can't government,
Stephen Moore,
tighten its belt?
Thank you so much for joining us. I wish we could go on for another hour. There's so many subjects. Senior economic advisor for Donald Trump, folks. You can find him everywhere on news. And we are signing off. And welcome back, America's Voice News. Dave Sussman here from Freedom Fest, and one of the things that I'm really interested in right now is our relationships, Americans' relationship with Israel, and some of the consternation that we're seeing right now internally within the United States, especially when it comes politically speaking. And to talk about this, we've got Gloria Greenfield from Doc Emmett Productions, Truth in Film. Welcome.
Yes.
How are you?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Likewise. A pleasure having you with us. So first of all, tell us a little bit about Truth in Film, Doc Emmett Productions.
Okay. So I founded Doc Emmett Productions in 2008 with the mission of being an educational nonprofit organization that produces films that strengthen Jewish identity, Jewish nationhood, and the values of freedom and democracy.
Right.
So the first film that we released in 2008 was The Case for Israel, Democracy's Outpost, with Alan Dershowitz as the spine, and other commentators in the film include Bibi Netanyahu, Zippy Livni.
Wow.
I mean,
You got them all.
We got them all.
You got them all.
Yeah. We got them all. Carolyn Glick, etc.
Yeah.
And that film, which has been translated into Arabic, French, German, Hebrew, Italian, Spanish, Russian, and Japanese, is still screening around the world. And it makes the case for Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state.
Wow. Okay. I want to get into this because we don't have a lot of time. And one of my biggest frustrations, as I said in the introduction, is the Jewish vote in the United States. And we see this also in Europe, especially in England as well. And that is that by all counts and measures, about 70% of the Jewish vote goes liberal. It always has done. It ebbs and it flows a few points here and there. Why? With what we're seeing right now with the seething anti-Semitism coming from Ilhan Omar and others in a Democratic caucus.
You know, this is not just a Jewish problem. In the Christian world, they have the same problem. What you see is when you have Jews and Christians who really don't have a strong relationship with a strong theological relationship.
Okay.
With their religion, whether it's Judaism or Christianity, and they really don't have a strong belief system in God. With no theological foundation, they create this new religion, which they still call Unitarianism or whatever, and that's a warped sense of social justice.
Okay.
And the relationship, the connection that you find in the Jewish world with secularized Jews is really dwindling. It's hardly anything because it doesn't meet the narrative of this new progressive think.
Right.
Of what social justice, who's the underdog. You know, there's a hierarchy now in identity politics of which people offer the most value.
Yeah, it's the hierarchy of victimology.
Yes.
So I had Rabbi Shmuley on my show.
Yes.
And we spoke, and he said something to me that blew my mind.
What did he
say? He
say?
said, God is dead in Europe. 6% of the citizens of the different countries within Europe go to church on a regular basis. 6, not 16 or 60.
That's right.
6.
That's right.
Are you seeing that here in the United States to a certain extent now? The secularism?
Yes, one of the biggest problems in the West, and this is what my latest film, The Fight of Our Lives, Defeating the Ideological War Against the West, is about, is the internal and external threats of ideas and movements that are anti-Western.
Right.
Now, Western civilization is founded on the Hebrew Bible and the Judeo-Christian values that come out of that.
Yep.
You want to destroy the West? You persecute, demonize Judaism, Christianity, Jews, Christians, and certainly the Jewish state.
Right.
Right? So what you see when I go to the UK with my films, you see churches that are no longer churches, they're mosques now.
Yeah.
You know, you see if whether you're in Europe or whether you're in the United States, if you mention God, you're looked at like you're a freak. If secularization has also brought us to a point where there's no divine creator anymore, right? Man is the creator, and if man's the creator, then you can do whatever. Everything is a social construct, and you start finding some very strange things happening in the world.
Let's talk a little bit about current politics right now. Again, we got this squad, and Ilhan Omar just pushed this bill that's going to essentially embrace BDS, boycott, divest, sanction Israel, which is an attack against Israel.
Right.
Okay. How do you think that impacts Trump 2020, especially among Jewish or evangelical voters?
I think Trump is going to win. He's going to be reelected. The more citizens see the likes of Ilhan Omar and Tlaib and AOC,
right,
the more evident it becomes that there's something very, very dangerous happening in Washington.
Are people awoke to this?
I think, listen, before I came to this conference, I was at a new foundation that's been founded by the Israeli-American philosopher Yoram Hazony, and it was the inaugural conference on national conservatism. You know,
yes, I heard about this.
It was wonderful.
Yes.
It was an incredible conference.
Yes.
I flew from D.C. to here on Wednesday morning, and you know, Marxism for Marxism, one of the goals is to destroy the nation state.
Right. Right.
And that gives us a little bit of understanding about why the hatred of the Jewish state, in addition to Israel being the Jew among the nations, Zionism is nationalism. And the problem that we have is that people look at certain nationalisms, like National Social, and think that all nationalism is evil. It's not. The nation state is very important.
Gloria Greenfield, where can people find you and what you're doing?
Okay, well, my films can be found on Amazon Prime, or people can go to the website and order DVDs at DOCEMET Productions.com, and there's a link to each of the films, and you can order them online. But Amazon Prime, all the films.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing. And folks, we'll be right back here from Freedom Fest. Again, Dave Sussman here at America's Voice News. Don't go away. And welcome back, America's Voice News. Dave Sussman here, live from Freedom Fest 2019, and the fun still continues. One of the wonderful things that's happening here at Freedom Fest this week is that there is actually an art show happening. We've got Michael Ramirez, and we've got with us today conservative street artist. Conservatives is the new punk, or Republican is the new punk. Sabo, how are you doing, bud?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing really well. So first of all, what are your thoughts on the art show and everything that's happening here at Freedom Fest?
Well, great. I mean, we brought a lot of work here. Well, I was impressed at the scale.
Yeah.
So it's good. Yeah.
What do people? Your art, and most of our viewers know your art. Your art is definitely on the edge. It just eviscerates a lot of people in politics today. From a right of center perspective, what has people's reactions been to your pieces this week?
It's been great. I mean, everyone that I've spoken to, if anyone looks at a certain piece, and they kind of have a sour look, I understand why. And I like that sometimes I'm there to explain it to them.
Yeah.
And after I do, that they get it. But I heard that the staff got some complaints from people who work here. But then they said, but we also had people who work here that had a positive response. I just like that there's a response, because I can't tell you how many art shows I go to where you walk out and you don't think anything.
Yeah.
So I would have to say a good 90% of the people that walk in there at least walk out with a thought.
You know, it's funny that you mention it, because if you go into this art room and there's a lot of pieces over there, there's actually, like, you remember the video stores, and you go through the doors in the back to get to the adult section?
Yeah.
Sabo has an adult section, folks. There's like literally a tarp that you have to go through to see some of the stuff that's back there. You think people are so offended today, especially right of center people are still offended by stuff that they see? Middle fingers or whatever it may be?
You know, man, unfortunately, this is a conversation you might not want to have, because it's like, what it really comes down to is they don't want to piss off the money people. It's like there may be some big fish out there that funds this project.
Right.
And it's like, if he gets upset because I've got potty words or some really racist thing, he may wonder, hey, I'm pulling out.
Right.
And that's what scares people more than anything else. And all I can say is the first time I've heard the words free speech zone was during the Democrat National Convention, and it was Bill Clinton. And I was like, what are you talking about, free speech zone? And now we've traversed to such a degree that we now have them at libertarian events.
You know, you talk about the difference between potty language and racist art, or what people would consider racist art. I know you. I consider you a friend, known you now for several years. You are the least racist person I've ever known. And yet at the same time, a lot of people will take a look at some of your art and brand it as racist. What is the split there? I mean, is it that you're using you're making a statement? What is it? Irony? What is it?
Well, for one, they're idiots. But two, I believe good art sometimes requires a bit of definition. It's like, and believe me, I'm not comparing myself or putting myself in the same class as whatever artists out there. But sometimes to really appreciate and understand what's going on in an art piece, it requires understanding what's going on in the artist's head, why he did what he did, and then once you're able to see that piece through that prism, then it makes sense.
Right.
Whereas if you just out cold stand in front of the piece, you can make up your own mind, and more times than not, you can be wrong.
Right.
Just because I use a certain word doesn't make me a racist.
And
And these days, as we all know, it's just like an art to be offended. So it doesn't take much.
Last couple of minutes here. What is your impressions on right now what is going on politically? I know that you've been a Trump supporter.
Yeah.
And as we're heading into an election next year, where are things at right now for Sabo as far as the art that you want to produce? Are you going to be doing stuff for the election? You have billboards, right? And you produce really, really big art that gets noticed. What's the plans for the election and your feelings about it?
It's great, man. I've got some stuff lined up when I get back. It's like it really is up to me. The opportunities are there to hit.
Right.
It's just a matter of I feel better, physically better, mentally better. I'm looking positive towards it. I'm learning a lot from these experiences. I'm more concerned with what happens once Trump is gone, even if he gets reelected.
Right.
Because I see a vacuum, and I don't see anyone that can fill those shoes.
Well, that's 5-6 years from now, hopefully.
Yeah.
And, there's always, who would have predicted Trump in early 2015, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so where can folks find you, find your art, help support you as well? Because I know that you, that's important, obviously, to continue the art for you.
Yeah, all I can say is if I take over a billboard, that's $3,000 that I've got to pay. But unsavoryagents.com, there's a donate button there.
Okay.
I appreciate the help. Buy a t-shirt or a poster.
Check out his art, folks. And you go through and you find some of this stuff, and some of it will make you giggle, some of it will shock you, some of it you want printed on your t-shirts, or get the poster and buy the actual art. And if you're still in Las Vegas this week, come check out the art show here at Freedom Fest and check out some of Sabo's art. Thank you so much, buddy. Appreciate it. And we're going to be right back here at Freedom Fest. Dave Sussman signing off here with America's Voice News. Stay tuned. And Dave Sussman returning here at America's Voice News at Freedom Fest 2019. The party just continues, and we are talking now with John Tamny, Senior Editor-in-Chief at Real Clear Markets and author of a fantastic book that just came out last year, End of Work. And you got a new book coming?
Yes, called They're Both Wrong, which criticizes both sides. Everyone should want to buy it.
You're somewhat, I would call a contrarian today. And so talk about it from the perspective of, I always found you leaning more conservatarian, libertarian, especially when it comes to free markets and libertarian thought on the economy. Talk about what your perspective is right now. Let's go one target right now, trade. What is going on in your mind on this?
Well, trade is just what we all do. I don't think either one of us cuts our own hair. I don't think we make the clothes that we wear. I don't think that we grow or raise the food we eat. Thank goodness we get to do this from others, because if not, we would die very quick deaths, homeless deaths and all that, because we're probably not good at making clothes or cutting our hair and making the food we eat. And so trade is just elementary. If you're not allowed to exchange with others, you're not allowed to specialize. And so it's not the parts of the U.S. most exposed to trade that are struggling. It's the parts of the U.S. least exposed to the rest of the world that are struggling.
Such as?
Well, you look at places like Aliquippa, PA, if you look at Middletown, Ohio, there's not enough interaction with the rest of the world, and as a result, all the talented people have left. To be clear, the closing of a factory could never ruin a city. If that were true, then Los Angeles and New York would be the most depressed, burned out cities in all of the United States, because in the 1920s and 30s, they were the #1 manufacturing cities in the U.S. The fact that they've pushed those away is why they prosper today, because talented people don't want to work in factories. They want to keep moving forward. And so it's the places where people are still clinging the jobs in the past that are doing the least well, because that's not how you attract the talent.
So the evolution, let's say in technology, information technologies today, which has taken over cities like Los Angeles, Silicon Beach, you got Silicon Valley, obviously, in San Francisco, Seattle. We were just having this discussion. A lot of people are saying that those cities are being impacted by, the a lack of urban governance. Okay, you've got a lot of drugs, you've got a lot of homelessness, you've got a lot of issues with that in the city, but those are cities that are thriving economically. Where's the disparity there? What is that from?
Well, I think let's ask the question. I'm guessing that there aren't a lot of homeless people in Jackson, Mississippi. There aren't a lot of them in Charleston, West Virginia, or Buffalo, New York. To some degree, people are going to go to temperate places, but also places where there's lots of prosperity, if that is going to be the source of their income. and their source of sustenance. You want to go to where there's lots of wealth. And so it doesn't surprise me at all. I'd bet a lot of money. I've been to Seattle a lot over the years, and certainly when you go now, you see lots of tents. I'll bet you those tents weren't there in the 1970s, because in the 1970s, Seattle was like Detroit is today.
Well, how much of that is related to the government providing medical and food and other types of services, whereas before they didn't have that? It's always about more money being spent on these types of things.
Look, that certainly can't help, but there's a high rate of poverty in Texas. No one would say Texas is a poor state. California as a state would be the 5th largest economy in the world. Texas would be the 10th.
Right.
But there's a high level of poverty. There's a lot of homeless people in Texas. Why? Well, there's a lot of rich people in Texas. And so I think we overstate the correlation, or I think we miscorrelate that.
Okay.
And that's the contrarian in me. I don't see things the way most people see them.
Yeah, and it's an interesting perspective, because you take a look at what's going on right there in Los Angeles. They're saying, well, we need more money. We need more money. And it's been nothing but abject failure for a lot of these. The homelessness is spreading out, and it's almost metastasizing across many areas of the state as well. So they say they need more money to do what they've already been doing. So it's kind of doubling down on what they've been doing before. So that's my, your contrarian approach to things. It's my response to that. But
I like it.
Yeah, but we're both wrong, right? But according to your book, talk to me a little bit about where you see things right now with the economy. We've got indicators, obviously, the best unemployment rates, relatively low, CPI. Inflation hasn't increased. A lot of people, especially libertarians, have predicted that for the past 10 years. Where is that inflationary index, and do you think it's coming?
Well, for one thing, when an economy is growing, that is almost by definition a sign that prices of everything are dropping. Economic growth, real economic growth, is driven by investment, and investment is all about producing more and more with less and less. I do think the problem with inflation is how we measure it. Sure, you could make CPI, you can make that number whatever you want just by
food and energy.
If you want to take food and energy out of it, it's going to be lower. If you want to take the cost of newspapers out of it, how much did a Wall Street Journal cost in the year 2000 versus today? It costs $4. And so depending on what you put in there, you can make it at whatever price you want.
Right.
To me, a better, more objective measure is to take something like gold that has historically been used to define money, and it's been historically used to define it, not because we're mystics or fringe, but because it was historically known to be least influenced by other things. It held its value. And so in gold terms, when Trump got into office, a dollar bought roughly 1/1200th of an ounce of gold. Today it buys 1/1400th of an ounce. That signals a dollar that's gradually weakening. And if you look in the Bush and Obama years, that has negative implications. That it does is a statement of the obvious. Investors, when they invest, what are they doing? They are buying future dollar income streams. They are investing into the hope of getting dollar returns down the line.
Yeah.
Well, if suddenly you're devaluing the dollar and presidents get the dollar that they want, you're essentially putting a tax on the very investors without which there is no economic growth.
Tell us a little bit about the upcoming book in our last minute here.
Well, the upcoming book basically says that liberals and conservatives are far more pro-government than they both realize. Each side has endless policy solutions for everything. Each side actually wants to grow government to fit its policy needs. And so you see it with immigration, you see it with climate change, you see it with fear of deficits, you see it with all sorts of different things. You see it with education down the line. You see it with liberals saying that Obama saved us from the Great Depression. No, he didn't. He did no such thing. And you see it the other way with conservatives. And so I'm making the case that both sides increasingly are too reliant, have too many ideas about policy meant to fix things. I seek a lack of policy.
Thought-provoking. His reading is fantastic. I follow him over at Real Clear Markets, and so should you. And look out for his new book. His last one, End of Work, was fantastic. John Tamny, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Greatly appreciate it. And we're going to be right back here at Freedom Fest at America's Voice News. Stay tuned. And Dave Sussman back with you at America's Voice News. We are still live here at Freedom Fest 2019, and I'm delighted to be sitting down with Dr. Warren Farrell, the author of The Boy Crisis. And welcome back to my show. You've been on a couple of times as well, and welcome to Freedom Fest.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you in person.
So
and have a chance
thank you.
To do this
Yes,
way.
likewise. So first of all, tell us a little bit about why you're here at Freedom Fest, because you are a renowned author. You talk about men's rights, men's rights activists. You talk about the Me Too movements going on. Well, how does that fit in with Freedom Fest?
Well, Well, it's very important that a lot of the people who have been supporting the boy crisis have said that they realize that there is a boy crisis, A, and B, that when I mentioned the father involvement, lack of father involvement is the single biggest cause of the boy crisis. Conservatives get it right away. Libertarians get it right away. They understand the value of family and the value of and the benefits that come from dads providing that extra boundary enforcement that dads tend to provide. And when they heard that I had found that the boy crisis resides where dads do not reside, conservatives and libertarians get it immediately. Liberals, they tend to focus more on we're sorry boys are having problems, but we want women to have the freedom to be able to raise children by themselves. And we want women to have to divorce to be able to raise children by themselves if they think that they're the better parent. And I said that's just the evidence does not support that in terms of the benefit to our children.
A couple of quick questions for you because of the limited time of this segment. And folks, if you want to hear the longer segment, check out the Whiskey Politics interview with Dr. Warren Farrell on America's Voice News. We go for about an hour on that. Okay, two quick questions. So we're facing an epidemic right now in the inner cities where you have single-parent households. And a lot of people will point to before the Great Society, okay, the welfare programs that were implemented in the 1960s, single-parent households in the black family in the inner cities were about 20%. Now they're about 77%. Okay, we're at a libertarian-leaning conference here. How can that be adjusted and for the benefit of families?
Yes, first of all, that's exactly right. In 1965, the Moynihan report came out, and the investigation was looking at the inner cities and why there is so much crime and so many problems. And people were thinking, well, maybe it's because he's going to end up concluding that African Americans are the problem. He found out that African Americans were not the problem. It was the dad deprivation within a certain percentage. At that time, it was 25% of the African American families were being raised. The boys and girls were being raised in dad-deprived circumstances, and it was there that the crimes were happening. So we knew this in 1965. At that time, the Caucasian community had a 3.25%, that basically 3% of the children were being raised in dad-deprived families, and we didn't have major problems in the Caucasian community at that time. Today, the Caucasian community has more than about 30%, 32% of the children are in dad-deprived families. The African American community, it's over 75%. And so, and you see this with the prison population. The prison population is not just 93% males, but more than 90% of those males are dad-deprived males. You see this in the mass shooters. The mass shooters, about 90% are dad-deprived boys or men. You see this also with not only the mass shooters, but the ISIS recruits. ISIS recruits are not only dad-deprived males, but also the smaller percentage of women who are ISIS recruits are also dad-deprived.
It's really interesting because we go back to your book, and one of the things that stood out to me, it was so profound, is that you said that the Hitler Youth in World War II, most of them were fatherless kids.
Yes, the Hitler.
So it's cyclical, isn't it?
It is. I mean, we have known and seen the vulnerability of fatherless kids for a long time. When we see, if you watch the movie Spotlight and you saw the priests were preying on young children, and one of the priests mentioned, one of the people who knew about this mentioned that the priests kept an eye out for the vulnerability of dad-deprived children.
My last question for you, because again, it's a shorter interview here. The Me Too result that came out of the Kavanaugh hearings and where we are today as a culture in our society. How concerned are you right now?
I'm concerned that the hashtag Me Too is a good thing up to a point. That is, it's very important that women feel permission to be able to speak up and say, Me Too, this happened to me too. However, the hashtag Me Too is a monologue. Hashtag Me Too needs to be a dialogue. We have been looking at women's issues from only the perspective of women seeing their experience of powerlessness and the male experience of power. We haven't understood the male experience of powerlessness and the male experience of female power. If you have a son...
explain that, please.
If you have a son and he's 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, and he wants to call Katie, who's the really attractive girl in his class, you sense him shaking in his boots that Katie will not be interested in him and will reject him. He will go out maybe and work hard to get a car or to get to do things to please Katie. You and I are guys. We know what we did to be, what the type of money we were willing to earn, so we had enough money to take a girl out on a date. We wanted to do things that would please girls, just like girls wanted to do things that would please us.
Right.
So our experience of powerlessness when a female was a cheerleader, we were willing to go 1st and 10, get a concussion again. To risk being the guy that cheerleader would cheer for.
Yeah. Listen, this is a discussion, and we're going to have you back on again to talk about this, especially in the wake of Me Tooism with Kavanaugh and whatever else is happening in our culture and social justice warriors today. It's really deeply concerning. So everybody needs to check out Dr. Warren Farrell's book, The Boy Crisis, and look for our long-form interview. It's Whiskey Politics on America's Voice News. Dr. Warren Farrell, thank you so much for joining us.
Really a pleasure.
All right, and we'll be back right away. Dave Sussman here at America's Voice News, live at Freedom Fest 2019. Welcome back. Freedom Fest 2019. Dave Sussman here at America's Voice News. I'm delighted to be joined by conservative comedian, author, and good friend, Evan Sayet. Hi, Evan.
Hey, David. How are you?
Yahoo, cowboy.
I have a joke. It's sort of a joke. It's not that funny, but it's right there. What do you call a middle-class Los Angelino? A Nevadan. Right? And so when I moved to Nevada, I said, okay, I'll change the radio stations, and I got to get a cowboy hat. That's the first two things I did.
You did well. It fits you very well.
The thing is, you don't have to be wedded to it. Once you wear it, it's over because you can't take it off. You got hat hair.
So in Vegas, why did you choose black? Just out of curiosity.
Because it was there. It was the hat that fit me, that looked good. That
right.
I don't have to wear it. I've got a baseball cap. I got all these other things I can wear. I even have a schmata.
He's got a schmata.
I got a schmata.
For those that don't know what it is, look it up.
It's a rad.
First of all, an incredible job, an incredible success with your new book, Apocalypse Now. We've talked about it before on the show. It's had Evan on, so look up the long version of our interview. But real quickly, just share what you did with Bronco and your incredible book there.
Right, editorial cartoonist A.F. Bronco, who is amongst the best. And we wrote, I still, at this late date, don't know exactly how best to describe it, because it absolutely is a children's book about the environmental hysteria that they terrify our children with.
Right.
But it is also an adult political satire. And so it is both, and I am so grateful that it's being recognized as both. When it came out for the first 3 weeks, which is, I think, how long Amazon allows it to be called a new release, it was the #1 new release in all of America in the children's environmental section and the adult political humor section.
It's pretty impressive.
Don't you think?
It's very impressive.
That's how I can afford that.
And it's a great read, and the cartoons are fantastic, and it does read like a bedtime story. It's almost poetry in a very Dr. Seuss, but a very sardonic, sarcastic way as well. It's fantastic.
Right, and what I particularly like about it, and then we can get on to other things, is that it's not really political until the very end. I don't make any political statements. All I do is list in humorous fashion and with terrific illustrations by A.F. Bronco.
Right.
But all I do is list one after another of all the catastrophes, all the apocalypse, all that they threatened us with since we were young. Whether it's a hole in the ozone that was going to kill us, actually global freezing came first. Whether it was acid rain, we were all going to have our skin melt off, killer bees were going to sting us to death, and all it does is list, to make fun of global warming, list all the other things they threatened us with through the years.
Everybody should check this out. Let's get on to the issues of the day. We're seeing this squad. Okay, your AOC, your Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
And you know why she calls herself AOC, don't you?
Why?
So she can remember how to spell it.
Ilhan Omar. You've got these just insanity that we're seeing right now, which for a lot of people on the right, they think this is going to lead to Trump's re-election because they're just seeing how nuts these are. You've got an article that's coming out in American Greatness tomorrow, I believe.
I believe later today.
Later today. Okay, everybody check out American Greatness for this article, but I want to just touch upon this for everybody to go check out so they can read the full thing. You're referring to this sense of identity politics, this everybody's a racist thing. You compare that to how in World War II, the V-2 rocket.
Right.
Explain this.
Well, it was a terrorist weapon. The V-2 rocket was singularly inaccurate. when they were bombing Great Britain to try to finish the European Union that Hitler was trying to create, they were bombing Great Britain with this hugely inaccurate weapon. And this was actually what Hitler thought and the National Socialists thought was its charm, because it wasn't meant to hit military targets with pinpoint precision.
Right.
It was meant to terrify the population so that you didn't know where it was going to go off next. And that's the same thing the left has done with calling us racists and homophobes and xenophobes. They don't really care if we are. We're not, any one of us specifically, their targets. They want people to know. When they went after that kid from Covington, Kentucky,
yes,
all right, Nick Sandman with the MAGA hat, he wasn't a big
Nathan, I think, Phil Nathan, something like that. Yeah.
But I'm talking about then the media went after him.
Right.
Then they turned it into the Democrats went after him. There was actually a writer for Saturday Night Live who offered oral sex to anybody who would punch him in the face.
We saw that tweet.
Okay, so it wasn't him. What difference does it make to the great culture wars if he wears a hat or not? That was a signal to all the rest of us that your life can be destroyed in an instant if you don't capitulate to the left.
So where does this go from here? Because, I mean, it's really boiling over right now. People are so angry. Does it end well for the right? Do enough people, moderates, right, left of center people, classic liberals, wake up to this?
This is actually the moment of decision, because since the 70s, 80s, 90s, the Democratic Party really wasn't this extremist left-wing party. Nancy Pelosi's not a Marxist radical. Joe Biden's not a Marxist radical. They're not looking to overthrow the status quo. They are the status quo. But what they used was Alinsky's tactics meant for radicals. Anybody who disagrees with you is our biggest enemy. It doesn't matter if they just disagree with you a little. Suddenly they are politically allied to the far right.
Right.
Well, now the Pelosi's are getting it from their left.
Yeah.
And what do? Does Pelosi count out to the left and become simply a titular leader because the left will be telling her what to do? Or does she say, no, I care more about America, side more with the right, and lose to the Republican Party?
And that's going to be the debate of our time. Folks, check out Evan Sayet's book, Apocalypse Now, on Amazon.com. Look for his article coming out later today on American greatness. It's fantastic. And again, thank you, my friend.
Always a pleasure.
Appreciate it, Evan Sayet. And Dave Sussman here, wrapping up over at Freedom Fest at America's Voice News. We'll be right back. And welcome back. It is the last and final day here at Freedom Fest. I'm Dave Sussman with America's Voice News. And a little bleary-eyed. We've had a lot of fun here the past few days, but we're going to continue going on today. Got some great panels, got some fascinating guests coming up. And to start off, we're going to be speaking with Jeff Hewitt. Jeff Hewitt is the county supervisor of 5th District. Did I get that right?
5th District,
okay,
yeah.
In Riverside, California, focused very much on the Libertarian Party, which we are at the home of the Libertarian Party, Freedom Fest, kind of the center of the Libertarian universe. Give me kind of a rundown of your perspective right now on the state of the Libertarian Party.
Well, Dave, I've never been so excited. I have never been so excited. I have been a registered libertarian since I was 19 years old when I was 72, in 1972.
Right.
When I was 72, there you go. And we've always had a culture of, it's been a culture of failure. We've been trying to be, we're very, very principled, believe it or not, and we go out there and we try to go against the two big parties, and we've done it wrong, because what we've done is we've run presidents, we've run for senator, congressman. These are known as paper candidates. And we think that if people just see there's another party, they're going to somehow flock to us if they're unhappy with the other. But in reality, somebody's vote is the most precious thing they have, and you have to earn it. So what I've done, after being in the party so long, I got elected to a small city council, was on there for 2 terms, and the last 3 years I was the mayor. In those last 3 years, I had an opportunity, after convincing my colleagues, none of which were libertarians, and getting my full city staff on board, to kick out CAL FIRE, the monopoly for California with their powerful union and everything, because they were going to force us to put one more firefighter on each shift, which would have cost us $750,000 on a small city of $5.5 million budget.
Okay.
I kicked them out. We formed our own, as a team, again, persuasion, not coercion, although the unions like to use a lot of coercion, but we kicked them out, and we formed our own non-union with 401ks, sustainable pensions. Nothing like that had been done in California for 30 years. And now the city of Placentia in Orange County has come out and said, how did you do it? They're following us.
Right.
So is Canyon Lake, and there's many more to come.
So obviously you're very much regional focused. Talk about the Libertarian Party nationwide. What are we seeing right now happening there?
So nationwide, first of all, we're starting to get the fact that, you don't go to a doctor that's never been to medical school, so why would you vote for anybody that's never had one day in office, especially for a very high office? Mm-hmm. So we're focusing on those local, nonpartisan offices. If you're libertarian, you're going to do good things, and you're going to build up something. We're starting to see those. I believe the state of Florida and the state of Pennsylvania both have now the most elected nonpartisan libertarians.
Okay. And so what you're talking about is similar to, I guess the analogy would be a baseball's farm team.
Exactly. And we use that term all the time.
Okay.
Or you'll say, what do you have on the bench?
Right.
We talk about that for the two major parties on presidential election. You say, well, who's on the bench coming up and stuff like that.
Right.
It applies to everything in politics. And the message I like to get out to people who are libertarian, or just feel libertarian and they're in another party and they think they can't win, is go out and do the hard work. Plus, when you even have a very, very small local office, there are great things you can do for your constituents. Because what we forget, getting elected and all the hoopla and getting the title, all right, that maybe attracts some people.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you're representing a certain amount of constituents. And they're asking you to make those hard decisions that they don't have the time to do or the expertise themselves. So there's a trust. You got to build the trust, build a record, build a resume. And now,
what is that process as far as timing goes? Because if you take a look at what's going on right now, the last presidential candidate who ran for the Libertarian Party, Gary Johnson, we've had him on our show. I think, what was the percentage? It was in low
3%.
single digits, right?
3%.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was a record.
Right.
So
what when you talk about seeding a team like this, are you talking 5, 10 years, decades, what?
Well, okay, let's just assume for a minute. Okay, so I just went from a job that had 11 full-time employees,
right,
to one that has 23,000 employees with a $6.6 billion budget. I'm one of 5 people,
right,
that there's 44 different departments. Counties do almost everything the government does in California. If I were to go ahead, and I am working on it, the biggest crisis is unsustainable pensions.
Especially in California.
I'm working on bringing it down so we can only hire new, sustainable, defined contribution pensions.
Gotcha.
If I can do that in the next two years, I could walk into the governor's mansion with an L behind my name because everybody knows how big that is. We forget in politics, it's not about getting elected is actually the easy part. Governing effectively is the hard work.
Right.
And if I were to get that done, maybe in the next 4 years, if you had a libertarian governor of California, then possibly, legitimately, you can get a
Where can folks find more information about you and what you're doing?
Well, they can look on, they can go on Google, or they can just put in my name, Jeff Hewitt. Reason TV just came out with a nice 5-minute.
Oh, fantastic.
That's a great one. And also go on LP.org, and I did the response to the State of the Union this year for the Libertarian Party.
Jeff Hewitt. Everybody check this guy out. Go to LP.org. Look for him at Reason. Thank you so much for what you're doing. And folks, we're going to be right back here at Freedom Fest. Dave Sussman here at America's Voice News.